Okay, so we all love the World Cup, right? The drama, the goals, the glory. But, behind all that on field action, there's this other game being played, a high stakes legal game. And we're not just talking about money, though there are billions of dollars involved. We're talking about fundamental human rights. So let's pull back the curtain and take a look at the World Cup's hidden playbook. So let's start with a number, $3.8 billion. That's what Canada alone is expected to rake in from the 2026 World Cup. I mean, it's a huge economic engine. But when that much money is on the table, you better believe organizations like FIFA have their own set of rules to protect it. And this playbook, well, it has some really big consequences for the host cities and, the actual people living there. And get this, for the first time ever, the tournament is going to be spread across 3 different countries. We're talking Canada, Mexico, and the United States. This is completely unprecedented, and it creates this massive logistical and legal puzzle. You've got to weave together all these different laws and cultures into one seamless and very, very controlled global event. So, how does an organization like FIFA do it? How do they protect those huge investments from their official sponsors? Well, they create what you could call a brand bubble. It's a carefully controlled environment all around the event, designed to make sure only the official partners get the spotlight. But, as you can imagine, keeping that bubble from popping is a constant battle. The biggest threat to this brand bubble? It's a tactic called ambush marketing. So what is that exactly? Well, imagine the official sponsor is, a big soda company. Ambush marketing is when their main rival swoops in and tries to associate themselves with the World Cup buzz anyway, without paying a dime. They're essentially trying to steal the spotlight that the official sponsors paid millions and millions of dollars for. So what's FIFA's secret weapon in this fight? It's something called a clean zone. And for more than 20 years, this has been a non-negotiable demand. If you want to host, your city has to pass special laws, actual ordinances that create these brand-exclusive areas around the stadiums and other key spots. And inside these zones, the rules are unbelievably strict. I mean, local businesses can't just put up a temporary sign. No unapproved banners, no giant inflatable mascots for your brand, no unauthorized selling of stuff. Nothing that could possibly compete with the official brands is allowed. The whole point is to make it a commercially sterile environment. But here's where it gets really interesting. This whole brand bubble idea, it just ran into a huge legal roadblock in the United States. And this one case could change the game for every mega event that comes to the US from now on. So, picture this. It's the 2023 Super Bowl in Arizona. A property owner in Phoenix named Bramley Paulin wants to rent out his ad space to Coca-Cola. The problem? Pepsi was the NFL's official sponsor, and his property was right in the middle of the clean zone. So the city blocked him. And what did he do? He sued them. Now, the city tried to argue that the law was all about public safety and, making sure downtown looked nice. But the court didn't buy it for a second. The judge basically said, nope, that's just a pretext. The real reason for this law was to protect the private, commercial interests of the NFL. And the judge's ruling was pretty blistering. He said the city had basically given away its power to a private company, the NFL, letting them decide who gets to have a sign and who doesn't. And that, he said, was totally unconstitutional. It was a massive hit to the whole clean zone concept. So the big takeaway here is that this one decision casts this huge shadow over whether clean zones are even legal in the US. It sets this really powerful legal precedent that says, hey, maybe these rules are actually an unconstitutional restriction on free speech. But, the fight over rights at these events isn't just about corporate sponsors and commercial speech. It's gotten a lot deeper, and it's now about a much more fundamental issue: human rights. Look, these huge events have a really troubling history. Think about the Atlanta Olympics, where thousands of unhoused people were arrested just to clean up the streets. Or the recent Qatar World Cup, with all the horrific stories about migrant workers. The human cost can be just staggering. And because of all that pressure, FIFA has finally, for the first time, put a formal human rights plan in place for 2026. And this really shows a bigger shift that's happening worldwide. You've got groups like the Sport and Rights Alliance pushing for totally new standards. They're demanding that these giant sports organizations be held accountable for how they impact actual people. It's no longer enough to just have a great game. It has to be an ethically responsible one, too. So, as part of this new plan, FIFA is making all 16 host cities develop their own human rights strategies. And these plans have to tackle the big risks, especially the chance that unhoused populations could be displaced. That's become a huge concern for civil liberties groups. But, and this is a big but, there's a major new complication. A recent Supreme Court decision in the U.S., City of Grants Pass, now gives cities a lot more power to clear out homeless encampments and even to criminalize sleeping in public. This ruling directly clashes with FIFA's stated goals, basically giving host cities a green light to clean up for the TV cameras. And that's exactly what advocates on the ground are afraid of. As Jennifer Lai from the Dignity 2026 Coalition said, a plan is just a piece of paper. It doesn't enforce itself. So right now, the well-being of some really vulnerable people is in the hands of local organizers who are under insane pressure to deliver a perfect, flawless event. Which brings us to the real conflict at the very heart of the 2026 World Cup. It's this tension between the perfect image they want to project and the reality for people on the ground. On one hand, you have this incredibly powerful drive for a pristine, perfectly branded, commercially clean show. And on the other hand, you have the First Amendment rights of local businesses, and even more importantly, the basic human rights and dignity of the most vulnerable people in these host cities. And so it really leaves us with this one critical question. When the entire world tunes in to watch the biggest party on the planet, who is it that really pays the price for that perfection? And when all the fans go home and the cameras finally turn off, what kind of legacy is actually left behind?